Welcome back to CIA Declassified. History has a way of remembering the names that sound like science fiction. MKUltra is one of those names. It has become shorthand for every conspiracy theory involving brainwashing and LSD. But if you look closely at the declassified paper trail, specifically the memos from the early 1950s, you will find a darker, more pragmatic sibling. Project MKDELTA. If MKUltra was the research laboratory where theories were tested, MKDELTA was the execution arm. It was established to govern the use of biochemical materials in special operations. This wasn't about finding out if a drug worked, it was about the logistics of how to poison a target in a crowded cafe, how to discredit a diplomat during a live broadcast, or how to neutralize an enemy without leaving a trace in a morgue. Today we go beyond the laboratory and into the field. To understand MKDELTA, we must understand the tension within the agency in 1953. The CIA's Technical Services Staff, or TSS, was divided. On one side, you had the chemist, men like Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the black sorcerer of the CIA. Gottlieb was a man who famously drank LSD himself to understand its effects, but held a utilitarian view of human subjects. On the other side, you had the operators, the men in the clandestine service who needed tools for the Cold War. MKDELTA was formally established to bridge the gap. A memorandum dated April 1953, signed by the Director of Central Intelligence, authorized the program specifically for field use. Unlike MKUltra, which often required the thin veneer of medical research to bypass legal hurdles, MKDELTA was, from day one, a paramilitary endeavor. Its mission statement was clear: the development and maintenance of a, quote, capability for the serotypous administration, end quote, of biological and chemical materials. Let's talk about the technological and operational breakthroughs that emerged from this project. Much of the hardware was developed at the SO Division, the Special Operations Division of the U.S. Army's Chemical Corps at Fort Detrick. The first major breakthrough was in micro-aerosolization. Under MKDELTA, agency engineers developed what they called the fountain pen. It looked like a standard writing instrument, but the internal reservoir didn't hold ink. It held a pressurized biochemical agent. With the simple click, an agent could release a fine mist into the air. The mist was designed to be inhaled or absorbed through the tear ducts. Another device mentioned in the Declassified Family Jewels report was the modified fluorescent light. Technicians developed a way to coat the interior of a standard light tube with a chemical that would vaporize as the bulb heated up. Imagine a target entering an interrogation room. They flip the switch, the light flickers to life, and within 10 minutes the room is filled with an invisible, odorless incapacitant. They also pioneered transdermal delivery. Long before the medical world used nicotine patches, MKDELTA was experimenting with different things such as DMSO. They found that DMSO could carry other chemicals directly through the skin into the bloodstream. In the operational files, there are accounts of the door handle protocol. Agents would coat the interior door handle of a target's car with a mixture of DMSO and a powerful incapacitant. The target would simply drive to work, and by the time they arrived, they would be in a state of total disorientation, or worse. But what were they delivering? This is where MKDELTA becomes truly chilling. While MKUltra was focused heavily on LSD-25, MKDELTA sought more permanent solutions. Together with the scientists at Fort Detrick, they developed Agent BZ. BZ wasn't just a hallucinogen, it was a deliriant. It produced a state of total loss of reality that could last for days. MKDELTA's success was in stabilizing these compounds so they could survive extreme temperature or be mixed into everyday substances like coffee or tobacco without changing the flavor. One declassified memo describes the MO for testing these delivery systems. They used Operation Midnight Climax as a field testing ground. In safe houses in San Francisco and New York, the CIA hired prostitutes to lure men back to rooms equipped with two-way mirrors. While the operators watched from the other side, the unwitting subjects were dosed with various substances using MKDELTA-developed delivery tools, sneaky cigars, spiked drinks, and even tainted greeting cards. The goal was to see if an agent could successfully dose a target without the target ever realizing a contact had been made. Now, we must address the black ink, the redactions. When you looked at the surviving MKDELTA files, the deletions are not just names. They are entire paragraphs, sometimes entire pages. Speculation on the redactions. Based on the surrounding context of the declassified memos and the testimony given during the 1975 Church Committee hearings, there are two areas where the redactions are most concentrated. First, the terminal experiments. That's a quote. There is a recurring reference in the TSS files to, quote, unwitting foreign subjects, end quote. Historians and researchers who have spent decades on these files, such as John Marks, author of The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, speculate that MKDELTA was the umbrella under which terminal experiments were carried out. If a high-level defector or a disposable prisoner in a foreign black site was no longer useful, they were turned over to the MKDELTA teams. The speculation is that these redacted sections describe the lethal testing of toxins, essentially using humans as biological test tubes to find the exact dosage required for a natural-looking heart attack. Second, this is a quote, the sovereign violations, end quote. The files frequently mention Project Artichoke techniques being applied in Area 1 and Area 2. These are likely code names for Europe and Southeast Asia. The redactions here almost certainly hide the fact that the CIA was bypassing the sovereignty of its own allies. We are talking about secret labs in the basement of safe houses in Paris, Frankfurt, and Tokyo, where MKDELTA technicians were practicing administration on local populations to fine-tune their delivery systems. In one surviving fragment, there is mention of, quote, disposable problems, end quote, a chilling euphemism for what to do with a subject who did not survive the dose. Was Project MKDELTA a success? From a moral or ethical standpoint, it was a catastrophic failure that violated every tenet of the Nuremberg Code. But from the perspective of the Cold War deep state, it was a massive success. It gave the CIA a third option. Before MKDELTA, if you wanted to stop a foreign leader, you had to either bribe them or kill them. MKDELTA provided a way to neutralize them. By using discrediting agents, the agency could make a charismatic leader appear drunk, insane, or incompetent in front of the world's cameras. They developed substances like shellfish toxin, which was so potent that a teeny amount, the size of a grain of salt, could kill instantly and be undetectable in an autopsy. Gottlieb himself once testified that the agency needed a way to commit, quote, the perfect crime, end quote. MKDELTA was the toolbox for that crime. In 1973, when the CIA began its internal family jewels investigation, the MKDELTA files were among the first to be targeted for destruction. Richard Helms, the DCI at the time, knew that while the American public might forgive a scientific study gone wrong, they would never forgive a program of systematic state-sponsored poisoning. He ordered the destruction of nearly all MKUltra and MKDELTA records, but a misfiled box of financial records survived, providing the narrow window through which we view this history today. The true history of MKDELTA is written in the silence of those who never returned from the safe houses of the 1960s. Next time on CIA Declassified, we move from the chemistry of the body to the untapped potential of the mind. In the early 1970s, the agency turned its attention to a young man from Israel who claimed he could bend metal with his thoughts and describe distant rooms he had never entered. We will be examining the classified report CIA RDP 96 007 87R 0070700110003-2, the official Uri Geller laboratory evaluation. We'll dive into the SRI international experiments where CIA observers watched Geller perform under controlled conditions. Was it a search for real psychic power to win the Cold War, or a master class in deception that fooled the world's most powerful intelligence agency? Find out next time. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.